In this video, I'll show you how to round a number to a specific number of decimals. This task is about writing a function that accepts two arguments, a decimal number and the number of decimals to keep. So let's start our function declaration with these parameters. Function roundTo, and the first one is going to be the decimal number, decimal num, and the second one is going to be the decimals. For now, let's just console.log decimal num and decimals. And now if I invoke the roundTo method and give it the number 5 and let's say the number 3, I get the output right here. Okay, so this is where things kind of stop being very simple. There's a whole rabbit hole related to floating point number rounding being quote-unquote off. And this is the case in JavaScript and other programming languages. The solution for this issue is a little bit cryptic as well. For example, if you want to round the number to 3 digits, you can do the following. So let's say function roundTo 3 is going to accept the n as an argument, and it's going to console.log plus Math.round, where n plus e plus 3, and we're also going to add e minus 3. Of course, since we're using two parameters, we could rewrite the function as follows. So let's name it function rt3 roundTo3, and n and decimal equals 3. And here I can say basically the same thing as above, but this time I'm going to interpolate the template literal. So I'll say e plus decimal, and here I'm gonna say e minus decimal. And now, of course, it's easy to generalize this function. So we can say function round to, let's say v2. So it's going to take n, and decimal is going to be initially set to 0. And now I can just console log basically the exact same code. And now we've written our function so that it rounds up to a whole number if the second argument is not passed to a function call. So let's try it out. Round to v2, and let's say I pass in 1.2345, and you can see that I'm getting a 1 output here. However, we can also pass in any number of decimals we prefer. So let's say I pass in 7 decimals, and now I'm indeed getting the decimals here. Well, let's just make this number larger. Okay. We can pass in, let's say, 5 decimals, and then we'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. We can pass in 3 decimals, and we'll get 2, 3, 5, or maybe even just 1 decimal, where we'll get 1.2. Okay, so this works great, but now let's discuss this e plus 3 business. So what is actually happening here? Well, basically, this line of code that I'm then just kind of repeating in the other pieces of code on this screen. So this line of code is essentially a clever use of Math.round function and the exponential notation, which is the scientific notation for exponential numbers. And this is how I'm actually quote-unquote cleverly rounding the number n to the, in this case, 3 decimal places. So let me explain it further. This part right here that says n plus and then a string of e plus 3, this piece of code takes the number n and converts it into a string representing the exponential form with 3 extra zeros. So let's say that n is, for example, 1.23456. By using this, I turn this number into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 e plus 3. So effectively what I'm doing is scaling the number by a factor of 1000. That is, I'm moving the decimal point 3 places to the right. So Math.round and e minus 3, basically Math.round and this thing right here together, I'm using it to round the resulting value to the nearest integer. And the rounding on this number right here basically gives me 1234.56. This is because Math.round acts on the scale number, effectively rounding the number to 3 decimal places. After rounding, I then add the e minus 3 to the integer, converting it back to a string in exponential form, but now scaled down by a factor of 1000. So this moves the decimal point back to its original position, but now with the number rounded to 3 decimal places. So this is kind of the logic behind it. I know it's maybe a little bit confusing, but all that you really need to remember is that we're using this kind of a expression right here. And as you further use it and learn about decimals and floating point numbers, this is probably going to kind of become more understandable. Also, it's worth noting that this kind of a solution is a bit hacky because it leverages the way that JavaScript handles numbers in scientific notation to perform precise rounding operation without the need for more complex mathematics or external libraries. It's a concise and, if I may say so, an ingenious solution, although it might be a bit less readable or more confusing to people who are not familiar with exponential notation in JavaScript.